Hey, my name is Ben, and this is day one of React Hacks. Today I'm going to show you how I made this really cool drum kit using the controller. So if you press one of the keys on the screen, oh, you can't hear it. There we go. We've created this like nifty little drumstick. So a little about this application, it is full stack, and I have used the Mongo Express React node, better known as MERN stack, and it follows the MVC models, views, controllers design pattern. So with that in mind, let's take a quick look at the code. And the N in MERN stands for Node. So Node is a technology that allows me to write backend code using JavaScript, and everything starts in server.js, where I create a server that listens for HTTP requests. For the drum kit, what I've done is I've created this controller which defines the routes, and I've told the server to use that router anytime it receives a request from a URL that ends in /drum. And the last thing I want to point out is this view engine that I've created here. And as part of the MVC pattern, this is how the server will know to look inside of my views folder when I need it to render a particular file. Now, there is no model for the drum kit because I'm not interacting with the database at all. So for the MongoDB, the Mongoose, or the M part of the MERN stack, that's not applicable for the drum kit. Instead, this is where Express comes in, the E in the MERN stack, where I've created a router, and I've just created a GET request so that when you access /drum, Express is going to render a file called index.jxs, which exists in my views folder. And this is what that looks like. This is my index.jsx, which lives inside a directory called views inside of a directory called drum. And this is where I use React, the R part of the MERN stack, and I've created a React component. There's three things I want to point out. The first is this layout component, and this is how I'm actually going to import my JavaScript file, and I've also used this layout component in every single one of my views files. That way each page in my application has a uniform look to it. The second thing I want to point out is these series of divs with the class name of letter. And I've created this custom attribute, and that is going to correlate to the key code of a particular key. So if you press S, S has a key code of 83. The last thing I want to point out to you is this series of audio files which share the same custom attribute, this data-key, and I have a value which matches with the key code of, for this instance, S, or the key code of whatever key that you pressed. Next is the layout page, that component where I've imported app.js. That's really all that's important to understand with today's activity. And now finally, app.js. This is where I've sort of created the drum kit. This is really cool because it's just vanilla JavaScript. So what I've done is I've grabbed each one of those letters, and then to those letters I've added an event listener so that when transition ends, and that's a CSS thing, when the transition ends, we're going to invoke remove class. To the window, I've added an event listener, which is going to listen for any time the user presses a key down, and when that happens, we're going to invoke play audio. So in play audio, this is where that custom attribute comes into play. So the key code is going to correlate to whatever key you pressed. So I'm going to access the audio file that has that same value, as well as the letter that has that same key code value. And I've added this if statement because I don't have an audio file for every single key on my keyboard. I only have it for, I think, 6. So as long as there is an audio file, then we're going to continue. If there's not an audio file for that key, like let's say you press P, we're just going to get out of this function and nothing's going to happen. But for those 6 keys for which I do have an audio file, what I'm going to do is first reset the play time of that file to the beginning, and then simply play the file. The CSS class is what gives that animation effect, so it looks like you're pressing the key down on the screen. So that is today's activity. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you tomorrow.